The fantasy trade deadline has officially passed. Hopefully you got to acquire some players that you've been looking to acquire for the entire season to set yourself up for a pretty good playoffs. I just made a trade recently. I traded a 3rd and a 6th round pick along with my 2 worst players for John Carlson and Jonathan Marchessault, and I got in return 11th and a 12th round pick. I'm going for a run in my big league this year, so hopefully it works out for me. In this video today, I'm going to give you 7 players I think you should be adding to your roster. I'm going to give you a mix of players that I think could have value over the next couple weeks, and then also some players that I think you should be looking to add going into your fantasy playoffs, given their very strong fantasy playoff schedule. If you're in a really good spot to succeed, if you think that you can make playoffs or you have playoffs already secured, you're in a really good spot, it may be worthwhile for you to add some of these players from the Washington Capitals who have the best fantasy schedule upcoming, and put yourself in a good position before other players in your league look to add them before that week. But we'll get into that later in the video. Guys, my name's Mike, and let's get into the video. Now, you guys have heard me say time and time again that this player may be a sleeper going into 2024, and Gabe Vilardi is definitely one of those guys. He has been very, very strong over the last 10 to 15 games, and he's currently skating on the top line and power play 1 with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, 2 of Winnipeg's best offensive players. This trade has worked out in Winnipeg's favor. Dubois seems to be like a nightmare type player where he's not very good in the dressing room. He's a lazy player, and he hasn't fit in well with the LA Kings so far, where we've seen the inverse effect with Gabe Vilardi, who's been very strong with the Winnipeg Jets so far this season. Over his last 18 games, he has 8 goals, 6 assists, 9 points in the power play, with 14 total points over that span. While adding 44 shots, he's really improved his shot rate this season. 4 hits and 13 blocks while playing 17 minutes and 30 seconds. Very solid minutes, but you have to keep in mind that these are in very highly offensive minutes, playing with a very strong goal scorer and playmaker in Scheifele and a very elite forward in Kyle Connor. Now, the minutes are continuing to rise over the last 15-20 games to over 18 minutes per night, and hopefully we're going to see that over the next coming weeks, given the opportunity he's getting on the top line and top power play unit. A very strong mix of shots, points, and power play point upside for the rest of the season. Vilardi's definitely a top 75 skater, if not top 50 forward, and at just 53% rostered, if he's available, definitely a guy you want to be scooping up on your team. I bet you would have guessed that Shane Pinto would be in this video. Did you see what I did there? Not really funny. But Shane Pinto, a player that's been very intriguing over the last 15 games since his return to the Ottawa Senators. And with recent news that Josh Norris is now injured again and he's out for quite a while, Shane Pinto is stepping into a much bigger role. Although already playing in a solid role at line 2, power play 1, this guarantees him strong minutes moving forward. He is playing on the second line and power play 1, skating with Brady Tkachuk, Ottawa's best offensive player. You could argue Stützle, but he hasn't been the strongest player this season. And since his return in those 16 games, Shane Pinto has 5 goals, 8 assists, 13 points, while contributing to almost every category with 50 shots, 83 shot attempts, 18 blocks, and 16 hits. He's playing big minutes, just under 18 minutes per night. I think with the injury to Josh Norris, we start to see this number rise to 18, 19 minutes per night. But this shot rate since his return to 10.6 shots per 60 ranks him 31st in the league. And he's not only just taking shots, but he's taking high quality shots. And that's contributing to his individual expected goals for, which is 1.44 per 60, ranks 14th best in the league. He's actually right beside Sidney Crosby in terms of expected goals for. So very intriguing numbers from Shane Pinto. The only downside is that he's a center only eligible player. So if you play in a league with position specifics, it's kind of difficult to roster him. But hopefully at 22% roster, you can find a spot for him. We want to keep in mind Ottawa's playoff schedule too, and week 23 to 25. He has 11 games. The Senators, but just 1 game on the off night, but still a very heavy schedule, just not many off night games. So an intriguing play right now with Shane Pinto, and I bet you're going to add him. Bertuzzi at just 22% roster right now is a perfect time for you to get in on him. He's currently moved up to the second line with Max Domi and William Nylander. We all know how good Nylander's been, and Domi's actually been pretty solid as of late. But with Bertuzzi, we're starting to see the second half Bertuzzi come alive. Exactly what we saw last year when he was traded at the trade deadline to the Boston Bruins. He was a very exciting player. He is a playoff ready player, and we're finally starting to see his true colors now that he's fitting into the Toronto Maple Leafs system. So over his last 10 games in February, he scored tonight. I'm recording at about 9 p.m. on the 29th of February, and he's already scored tonight, which means he has doubled his goal total for the entire season in 1 month. So this is really proving that Tyler Bertuzzi is a second half player. He also has been moved up to the top power play unit. John Tavares has been demoted, a guy that I recommended as a very solid trade target, one of the most unlucky players in the entire league. But Keefe has had enough, and it looks like Bertuzzi is going to be now playing on this top power play unit. He had 2 goals his first game on the top power play unit, and he has 7 points so far in his last 10 games, while adding 27 shots, 50 shot attempts, 18 hits, and 11 blocks. His minutes are up about +2 minutes since the last month, and we should only continue to see this number rise as he continues to produce offensively. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs as a team, the second best power play in all of hockey, now adding a guy who has struggled offensively and hopefully to find more scoring touch while getting better offensive reps makes him a perfect player to add moving forward. I will say this was probably one of the most difficult times for finding defensemen for you to add. I try to look for guys typically under 50% rostered on the top power play unit or that have been very good peripheral wise, and there's not much right now. So Travis Sanheim here, it's a very interesting play because he's been extremely good this season, but a lot of people continue to forget about him. It's super weird because he does skate on the second pair and he's not on the power play unit, but he plays big minutes, and the Philadelphia power play is terrible. It's one of the worst power plays in the entire league, so there's really no worry there. But with news recently that Jamie Drysdale's out indefinitely, the Flyers have been running 6 defensemen or 7 defensemen in most games right now, and now with 1 less defenseman, the minutes should only improve here from Sanheim. Now, everyone's dropped him, but he's on pace for one of the best seasons of his entire career. 50 points, 147 shots, 147 blocks, and just under 100 hits with 94. He's surpassed all of his offensive career highs so far, his shot attempts, his shots, his points. So this has been a very exciting season for Sanheim. A lot of people are off of him. I'm going to be riding the hot streak over the next little bit. They don't have the strongest playoff schedule, but for the next 2-3 weeks, if you're desperate for a defenseman, he's available on your waiver wire. Definitely someone I'd be looking to add. The minutes are a big thing with defensemen for me, especially if they're not on the top power play unit. For me, the minimum is 22 minutes if you're going to add any defenseman not on the top power play unit, unless there's players like Luke Shen of last season or Radko Gudas of this season that just contribute so much to the hit and block categories. Sanheim's an intriguing play, a very high floor defenseman, someone I'd be definitely looking to add in those 10 to 12 team leagues. Now, the only goalie in this list, and I'm going to say this is the start to the first of 3 players that I think you should be adding right now to prepare you for fantasy playoffs, and it's Phillipp Grubauer, someone I was high on this season, but it's so difficult to predict goaltenders that I like to just take complete shots in the dark, and we saw how good Decord has been behind this Seattle Kraken team, and after a few games of struggling and the return of Grubauer's been the starting goalie. He's been the hot hand, and that's who Seattle's been riding recently. He's starting 4 of 6 games, and he's actually starting in the game tonight, so it's going to be 5 of the last 7 Seattle Kraken games. They have a very good playoff schedule with 10 games and 4 games on the off nights against not strong opponents. And since his return, a 3-0 record, a .929 save percentage, and a 184 goals against average. If you go and look at his splits, he had a very, very bad November, and that's hurt his stats considerably this season. But he was injured, came back, and has been very good. But I just want to mention that goalies are so difficult to predict. And I know most of you, if you're looking to add a goalie and you've come to this part of the video to see this, you know how difficult it's been. Goalies will have 3-4 good starts, you add them, and then they'll have 3-4 bad starts. So proceed with caution with Grubauer. Definitely not someone I think that should be a priority. But if you want to prepare yourself for playoffs, or if you're struggling for goaltenders right now, someone I'd be looking to add. Decord's struggles have showed that Grubauer can now step into a #1 starting goalie role on a team that's been not bad this season. The first forward I would look to add to prepare you for playoffs, if you watch the intro or if you skip to this part, the Washington Capitals have the best playoff schedule so far in fantasy hockey with 11 games, 4 games on the off nights. Definitely a team I'm going to be targeting. I just traded for John Carlson in my big league, so hopefully that pays off. Dylan Strome here. I'm just trying to pick players that I think will have good upside come playoff time and that can play decent minutes. So with Strome here, you get a guy that's going to be playing line 2, power play 1. He's having a career year with the Capitals right now. Very, very interesting season. And a guy that I think can be a massive sleeper going into next year. But over his last 20 games as part of the entire Washington Capitals team, a 7.34 shots per 60, the 3rd best shot rate, 3.17 points per 60, the 2nd best shot rate, and he's averaging just under 18 minutes per night, which is the 3rd most amongst all forwards. And For playoff schedules, you need to be trying to maximize your games played and off nights. And Dylan Strome's a guy you can add before your playoffs start. So this week, next week, or the week after. And then come playoff times, you'll still have your 3-4 weekly ads. It really depends on how your league plays. For most of my leagues, I have a maximum ads per week. So for me, I want to be adding Strome a week or 2 weeks before, and then use my ads in that playoff week to be adding goaltenders and streaming goaltenders each and every night to maximize my games played and give me the most possible points to win. So if you've secured a playoff spot, a guy I'd be looking to add right now. If you're not secured a playoff spot and you're still in the hunt, which is like me in the FPPL Atlantic League, I'm definitely not going to be adding Strome right now, but an interesting play come playoff time. Now, if you can't get to Strome in a points league, I would definitely be looking at Tom Wilson. Now, inversely, if you can't get to Tom Wilson in a bangers league, who I would be prioritizing, then go to Dylan Strome. But with Tom Wilson here, you're getting a little bit more exposure to Alexander Ovechkin, well, because he skates with them on the top line, and he also plays on the top power play unit. Currently, he's averaging 6.92 fantasy points per game in standard Yahoo leagues, the second most amongst all eligible capital forwards. I would say Pacioretty's not quite there yet. His minutes, 18 minutes and 19 seconds, the second most amongst all capitals forwards. So you get the most possible exposure to ice time for the forward group. And I would say with Tom Wilson here, he's a very, very strong bangers league forward. He adds quite a lot of points to the block category, as well as contributing one of the best forwards for the hits category and penalty minutes category. Now, if you're in leagues with goals and assists and power play points and no hits and blocks, I likely wouldn't be adding Tom Wilson here, but still, he is skating on the top power play unit, which hasn't been good this year, and also the top line. Again, in playoffs, I don't want to be repeating myself from the last one, but obviously your priority is to maximize your games played in your off nights. So these are the two Capitals forwards at this point that I would be looking to target. That will do it for the Week 21 must-add players video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.